Welcome to the Local Insider Podcast, a show about everyday people who make a big difference.
Philip Blankenship, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey, so we were talking before about sometimes you may hear a rooster in the background of videos.
Yeah.
It seems like chickens are the latest hobby for everyone, but it comes with great benefits.
Yeah, lots of eggs.
Yeah. You know, it's funny how the market will cause people to change their priorities, and you know, I think that's the fastest turnaround I've seen on a market ever was when the eggs were $6 a dozen.
Everybody wanted chickens all of a sudden.
Yeah, next thing you know, everybody had it.
Yeah.
Or everybody had chickens. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? How did you get to Booneville?
Okay, so I grew up in Southwest Missouri. Was born in an area around Cassville, Missouri. My grandfather had a dairy farm there, and I lived on the dairy farm until I was about 5 or 6, and then pretty close there until I was 8. And then we moved to a small town called Billings, Missouri, just outside of Springfield.
Okay, that was my next question. How close is that to Springfield?
Yeah, and lived there until I was 17. Then at that time, my parents up and moved to California.
Oh,
and
wow.
I decided I didn't want to go to California. And so I lived in Springfield my senior year of high school, graduated from there. And while I was in high school, I started working for Sonic as a job, and moved up into management pretty quick with them. They started opening some stores in Quincy, Illinois, and they were needing some help up there. So I moved up there to help them open those stores, and eventually ended up they moved me to Booneville, in about 2002, and I've been here ever since. I worked for Sonic until about 2007. I got married in 2004, started having kids, and the lifestyle of just the hours that you put in at a restaurant was not conducive to good family life, and started looking for something else. So, but that's how I got to Booneville, was through Sonic.
So, what did you think when you moved so you were in Illinois?
Yeah.
And then you moved to Booneville. What part of Illinois were you in?
Quincy, which is about an hour north of St. Louis. It's right on the Missouri-Illinois border.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was odd to me. I guess I didn't know geography much when I was younger, because whenever I would visit St. Louis, there was a lot of people from Illinois that actually worked in St. Louis. Yeah. And how close are we to Illinois?
Right there on the line. Yeah.
So what was it like going from Illinois to Booneville? Was it?
Well, I mean, to me, Booneville is very similar to home to me. If I grew up around Cassville and Booneville are very similar in size. Cassville is a farming community. There's a lot of farming around here. So it wasn't too different to me. Right. Really, Quincy, it was about 40,000 people, and I really was probably more out of place there than I ever felt in Booneville. So
how did you meet your wife?
Church. I started going to a Primitive Baptist church, and she was a member there, and we met, and it didn't take long after we started dating, and we decided we were ready to get married, and so we we've been married now. Yesterday was our 19th anniversary. So we've been married 19 years.
That's amazing. Tell me a little bit about the Primitive Baptist Church. I know it seems like there's a lot of churches. You go to a church and that's where you stay. You don't visit other churches. You don't but it seems like you guys are visiting a lot. And whenever I went there were other folks from other churches as far as Little Rock.
Yeah,
that was visiting the church and magazine.
Yeah. So we would say we fellowship a lot with other churches. We don't have a head, as the church, a lot of churches, they'll have a head that kind of dictates a lot of things for the church. Each individual church is individual. So it is up to each individual church to build fellowship with other churches. And we believe that one of the duties of the church is to hold the truth. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we look for when we go from one church to the other is, do we believe the same thing, or is there something different? So we put a lot of emphasis on trying to make sure that the truth is what we have.
It's interesting that you guys do that. That's exactly how Paul did his ministry.
Imagine that, huh?
That just clicked with me. I'm in the in my Bible study. I'm in the New Testament, and whenever I was a child, it was mainly New Testament, and in my adult life, I spent mainly in the Old Testament. I would reference the New Testament, and to me, it was like, I already know all that. I don't want to read it, but that was hubris. But now that I'm reading it again, you learn so much more each time that you read it.
Yeah. Well, we believe that Christ set up the church whenever he was here, and that church is his kingdom here on earth. And if Christ set up the church, I can't imagine anyone with any better ideas than what he did,
right,
for how the church should operate. And so we want it to be exactly the way that he set it up, because we believe that he knew what he was doing whenever he did that.
Right.
And anytime we add something to it, whether it be in doctrine or in practice, then we're saying we know better than what Christ did. And I don't believe that we do.
Right. So there's no Primitive Baptist Council that decides on doctrine. Each church is its own.
Yeah, each church is its own. Every church has what we call articles of faith, and I believe that's normal for different denominations to have an articles of faith. Mm-hmm. That's what you believe. So if we stray from those articles of faith, then we're probably gonna not have fellowship with that church. So if you don't believe the same, then we're not the same denomination. We don't. Right. Somebody's wrong,
Right. There can't be two truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's only one truth.
Exactly.
That's a hard concept today.
We could both be wrong, but we can't both be right. if we're different.
Today, you hear in the common vernacular of our society that truth is relative, or relative truth. And you have your own truth, but that's actually an oxymoron.
Yeah.
It's counter to what truth means.
Exactly.
So how important is faith in your business in everyday life?
Well, I think it drives who I am. Mm-hmm. Whenever you are trying to live a life that's pleasing unto the Lord, that should emanate in everything that you do. So, that when you're trying to work in your business, then you want to be fair and honest in everything that you do. And I think that's part of that faith. I've tried, not to, I don't want to advertise Christianity as a selling point
right,
for using me.
It's not a marketing.
It's not a marketing tool to me. If I have to market it, then there's something wrong with what I'm doing. But hopefully that it is apparent that it is a part of my life.
So tell me a little bit about how you jumped from, you were in management at Sonic. What was the process like to start your business after working for a corporation? Yeah,
so whenever I was at Sonic, I got to a point where I was needing to do something different. And at that time, like the big job search engine that was available was Monster Jobs. And I haven't heard that name in a while, but I just started looking on monsterjobs.com for jobs that I thought might be beneficial or might work for me. And Edward Jones had a advertisement on there for a job. And so I was like, you know what? I think I could do that. And I applied. Went through. They had a big test that you had to take, personality test or whatever, and before you apply, and I took that and applied, and they called me. And interesting enough, I'd about talked myself out of changing. Changing jobs is, especially when you have a family to take care of, is a big step in life, and I'd almost talked myself out of changing. And they'd called me and told me I needed to go to an office in Fort Smith and do an interview. And I didn't do it. And
were you afraid, or you just didn't? You were kind of lost interest?
Well, I'm working 60 hours a week.
I see.
And I was just like, I don't know if I really need to do that. And I just, just a little bit nervous about the idea. And so I'd talked myself out of it. Well, I didn't go. I didn't call. Well, they called me back and they said, hey, you haven't scheduled your interview yet. And I was like, yeah, I probably need to do that. And I talked myself out of it again. And they called me back a second time.
Wow.
And I said, okay, I probably need to do this. To me, that was a little push to me to say, hey, if somebody's willing to allow me to not go to an interview twice and they still want me to interview, I probably need to check it out at least. And I went in to that interview. Basically, I spent a lot of time questioning the interviewer. I was like, I want to know what I'm getting into and how is this really going to work? And I left that interview. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Well, their interview process, you have 4 different interviews that you have to
good grief
go through. You had a in person and on the phone, another in person, and another on the phone. But after that first interview, I was all in. And so I worked at Edward Jones for about 3 years. Had an office in Van Buren, and then had an opportunity to work in Booneville at First Western. And they hired me. I worked for them for about 4 years, and then opened my office on my own. I've been out on my own since 2010.
So they Edward Jones, they kind of had a blueprint that you.
Yeah, you follow what they tell you to do. They had a really good training service. I think that they helped you get your licenses. They gave you a lot of sales training, and they were really good to me.
I think that's probably the most common way that entrepreneurs start their businesses. It seems like even in trades, like if you're going to be a plumber, you're not just going to, say I'm going to be a plumber and start doing it. You have to be a tradesman, work under a master plumber for a while, and then you can break out on your own. Well, it sounds like that even in the financial sector,
Yeah.
You kind of cut your teeth with either a franchise like Edward Jones or a bank or something like that. So it's interesting that there are some businesses that you kind of strike out and you have no idea. There's nobody to work for. It's, when you start something new. But for young people, I think that does answer a question of, how do I do that? I want to be, my own boss. How do I do that? Well, you can work for someone and get the skills to eventually be working for yourself.
Yeah. I when I was at Sonic, I didn't really have a boss standing over my shoulder. I mean, I started managing when I was 16.
Wow.
And so there was not much time in my life where I've had someone just standing over my shoulder telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes that's a challenge for me, I mean,
yeah.
So I enjoy working for myself because that's just what I've always done.
Yeah. I don't think there's anyone that really likes to be micromanaged.
Yeah.
I think of, the first thing I think of is, what was the guy's name? Bob Cratchit. Mr. Scrooge. His desk is like right there, and every little movie he makes. But anyway, so I recently heard through Rotary that you are a member of the Judicial Discipline and Disability Commission. What is that?
So that's a commission that was created by an amendment to the Arkansas Constitution to basically give a way to hold the the judges of the state of Arkansas accountable for their ethics. And so if individuals within the state have a complaint against a judge that, well, the judge should have done this and he did this, then they can file a complaint with the Judicial Discipline and Disabilities Commission. We call that JDDC for short. And so then the JDDC will evaluate the complaint and determine whether or not there's a real issue there or not, and then they will investigate that. And then there's different disciplines that we can put upon a judge for disobeying those judicial canons.
Right, like disciplinary action.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, they vary from just a slap on the wrist to saying, "Hey, don't do that. Don't do that again." Mm-hmm. To removal from the bench.
So, how is this commission? Is it connected to the bar in any way?
It is not. No, the bar is separate.
Mm-hmm.
So the bar.
So that would be a separate.
Yeah.
Disciplinary measure that would be taken.
So the bar can disallow individuals to practice law, where this is just the bench.
Mm-hmm.
So acting as a judge.
So that's a statewide commission, right? Or is it regional?
It is a statewide commission, yeah.
So how many people is it made up of?
So there are 9 members on the commission, and then there are 9 alternate members. And the 9 commission members, they have the final say in the discipline issues, and the alternate members, they're broke up into 3 separate panels, and they act as the investigators. So when a complaint comes in, that complaint will be assigned to one of those panels, and then they investigate, look at the evidence, and then a lot of times they will basically create a plea with the judge, so that it doesn't go to a trial. Mm-hmm. There's been some cases that have had to have a trial, and the commission then acts similarly to a judge and jury in the trial scenario.
So when you say it acts as a judge and jury, who would be like the judge and who would be the jury? And
well, so the 9 members on the commission all have a voice in whether or not they're guilty or not. Mm-hmm. We do have a commission chair that he would kind of act as the head of that courtroom.
So it's kind of like Supreme Court in that there's chief justices, and
you might say that's similar. Yeah.
So are the complaints anonymous, or do you have to be connected to? So what I'm saying is if someone makes a complaint, do they have to have had a case that was heard by this judge, or can they witness something?
No, anybody can make a complaint. You can make it anonymous if you want. There's different ways to file your complaint. You can mail in a complaint. You can go on our website and file a complaint. You can call in and make a complaint.
So who directs the investigations? Or is there someone that's kind of the lead of the, fact finding?
That's what I was trying to think about a minute ago. Is what their name? We have a director.
Okay.
And
they're elected or appointed.
The commission appoints the director.
Okay.
I don't think I explained how the makeup of the commission is. So the commission has 3 judges, 3 non-judge attorneys, mm-hmm. and then 3 lay people. Mm-hmm. So I'm one of the lay members on that. So it gives you 3 different perspectives whenever you're hearing complaint.
So it has 3 judges, 3 attorneys, and 3 citizens.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But then that commission appoints a director, and the director is kind of like acts similar to a prosecuting attorney.
Okay.
So they're collecting evidence whenever there's a complaint and trying to figure out, do we file charges or do we not? Mm-hmm. So, but she works with the investigative panels to help make a determination of whether or not we need to file charges or not.
And the investigative panels are made up of the 9 alternates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so the 9 alternates are the same. There's 3 judges, 3 attorneys, and 3 lay people. So each panel has 1 of each on the panel.
And how long do you serve?
It's a 6-year term.
So at the end of 6 years, do the alternates become the...
No. So when you're appointed, so like the judge members, they're appointed by the Supreme Court. The attorney members, they're appointed by, there's 3 different elected positions that choose the attorney members. Mm-hmm. And then the citizens are appointed by the governor.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So so whenever your term's up, whoever's in that position at the time can either reappoint you if you can serve 2 terms. Mm-hmm. And so they can either reappoint you or they may decide to appoint somebody else. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So what's how long have you been on it for now?
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah, my term, it will end in June.
And you can serve 2 terms though, right?
I can, yeah.
So would you be interested in doing that, or you think you're kind of done with it?
I've really enjoyed my time on there. As a non-attorney person, being in a room with a bunch of attorneys litigating is just kind of cool to me.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, it just kind of feel like I've learned a lot over the 6 years that I've been there. It does take a little bit of time. Our meetings are in Little Rock, but what I told my family was, I said, I'm not going to seek another term.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to apply for it, but if they ask me to, I might consider it.
So it is an application process. You like put in, you send a resume, or how does that work?
I'm trying to remember. It's been 6 years since I've done that. But if I remember correctly, I was asked to apply, and then I was appointed from that application.
So it's not anything that if that's something you aspired to do, could you send your application or resume or something, and they would, or is it typically like you?
I think anybody can apply for that, but like in my situation, I knew somebody that worked in the governor's office,
mm-hmm.
and he asked me to apply. So I don't think that they would appoint someone that they didn't have some connection to.
Right. I kind of want to know the people.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'd never heard of this.
Yeah, I hadn't either until I was asked to do that. But it honestly, it's given me a lot of faith in our judicial system to see that our judges, there is a way that our judges are held to account. And I've seen situations where, a judge needed to be held in account, and it was done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, nobody wants to see somebody disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
But when someone with that kind of power in the state abuses it,
mm-hmm.
they need to be held account.
Absolutely. I've recently, my 6-year-old graduated kindergarten. In every kindergarten, toward the end of the year, they learn about Arkansas history, the flag. And this is my 6th child to go through kindergarten, and it just now stuck with me and it didn't stick enough for me to remember the Latin phrase. I think it's regnant populus or I don't remember, but it means people rule, and we're one of the only states that has that in our state motto. I think it's regnant populus, people rule. Yeah. And it's interesting that all the judges in Arkansas are elected, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting that we have 2 avenues for recourse for a bad actor as a judge. And one of them is the electoral process.
Yeah.
And one of them is this commission. So if you don't have to get a petition and have a recall election or anything like that, you have an avenue.
Yeah. And the Supreme Court has the authority to remove a judge, remove his docket anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So if they see something, they can immediately step in and remove a docket, which is pretty impressive.
See, I wasn't aware of that. So there's 3.
Yeah. One of the things that, this may be a little bit off subject, this is just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever we elect a judge in the state of Arkansas, we don't generally know a whole lot about the judges.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it difficult to elect a good judge or unelect a good judge, because we don't know anything about them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my experience anyways, right. Is unless we know the person personally, it's just a shot in the dark.
Right.
So I struggle with that sometimes. It's like whenever I vote for somebody, I want to know them. I want to have this kind of an interview.
Absolutely. I mean, that's an important position. They hold someone's freedom in their hand.
Yeah.
Or their, their financial freedom.
Yeah. And in the state of Arkansas, judges aren't allowed to be affiliated with a party. And, a lot of times, it doesn't matter to me what party you're a part of, but it kind of lets you know their mindset
mm-hmm.
in a way. And, so without that, there's nothing really you can say, okay, I'd rather this one over this one. And there's not really a whole lot of information about those judges whenever you go to make a decision.
So what kind of separation is there between the judicial, in the elections? Mm-hmm. What kind of separation do the political parties have to have with a potential judge that's up for election? So can they be a member of the Republican Party up until the election year and then distance themselves? Or is it something to where there's a process of separation there?
I don't feel comfortable answering that question specifically. I know you're not supposed to advertise a party affiliation when you're running, and it gets somewhat sticky in different scenarios, and I don't feel comfortable saying, well, you can do this and can't do that off the top of my head without
reading the actual regulations.
Yeah.
Our forefathers, they knew the issue with political parties, and it seems like we're seeing that come to fruition now, and both sides is so entrenched that they're they're both at the polar opposites of the spectrum on anything. I don't want to get too political on here, but that just points out that I think that would be a good thing to get political parties out of politics. I think that would.
I think parties have a place in politics. I think the bigger issue that we have is that all the money for campaigns is controlled by the party.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
And once you basically, the party says you either vote this way or we run somebody against you and we fund them, which is, money gets people elected today.
Right.
And so I think that's the bigger issue, is that all this money for the campaigns is coming from parties and not from specific campaign.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not a grassroots. They can say the last grassroots campaign was Ron Paul, and they shut him down in 2012.
Yeah.
They wouldn't allow that. The parties stepped in, and look at the previous election with Bernie Sanders. They wouldn't allow him. Yeah. They said, thanks, but no.
Yeah.
So that, I just don't agree with that. I think if you have the sand to run and you can stand on your own 2 feet, that anyone backing you, if they say you're a member of it, that you're a member of it, you're not a subject to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then again, Bernie Sanders should have probably been in the Socialist Party, not the Democrat Party. But anyway, I'm starting to get off into a deep.
I'm staying out of that.
So how are the hearings conducted in this commission? My last question on this, by the way.
Yeah. So we've had most of what we have done is has been done through a plea.
Mm-hmm.
Most of your judges,
they don't want to go to trial.
They don't want a hearing, and honestly, there's been very little experience with trials in the JDDC that most lawyers don't necessarily want to defend somebody going through a hearing that they've never experienced before. But our hearings are going to be very similar to a regular trial.
Mm-hmm.
The judge would hire an attorney to defend him. Our director operates as the prosecuting attorney. The defense presents their defense, and the prosecuting attorney presents their case to the commission.
This is aside from this wouldn't take the place of any legal
No, this is just ethics.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they were to get criminal charges against them out in their private life, so they were drinking and driving or whatever, that wouldn't.
Yeah, that's completely separate.
Right.
Yeah. So there's been some cases whenever a complaint has been filed, and through our investigation, we have uncovered criminal activity and had the FBI involved, and so I mean that is something that does happen, but whenever you have criminal activity coming in, then you kind of need to act pretty quickly to get that individual off of the bench. But because it's an elected position, you want to take that very seriously. You don't want to remove an elected official whenever the people have elected them to be there, unless you just absolutely have to.
Right.
Yeah.
So, who's been the most influential person in your life?
I've had a lot of influential people in my life. My grandfather, I believe he was very influential in teaching me work ethic as a dairy farmer, and being able to work on the farm in the summer times with him, hauling hay and helping him milk, building fences. His never-ending drive has been very influential to me. My father, he was a pastor, is a pastor. He taught us put God first in everything that we do, and that's been very influential in my life. My pastor now, James Isaac, has been very influential in not just my church life, but just as teaching me how to be a better person, showing me how to be a better person. I've had a couple of bosses that I feel like have really helped me. Corey Harrison, he was my first boss at Sonic. Kind of took me under his wing a little bit and showed me some business things. And then Gary Jackson, he was, I would say, my second major boss. And he taught me how to manage people better. And so that was very influential. But all those people I feel like have been very influential in my life. Obviously, my wife. I think after I got married, the owner of the Sonics I was working at, she was like, "Man, she has changed you a lot." And I mean, it was pretty quick change.
They tend to have that effect on us.
Yeah, she's helped me out a lot, so don't want to forget her.
Yeah, I can tell you, my wife completely changed me. I was so laid back, and it was almost to the point of apathetic. I was just like, yeah, whatever. If I didn't really have the drive, and a lot of times you need someone that really believes in you.
Yeah.
And I think wives are good for that. And they'll also keep you in check,
Oh, yeah. Sarah and I are very different, but that's been very helpful to me, as she kind of, I'm probably a little bit too aggressive at times, and she's just like, just calm down, slow down. It's gonna be okay. She's my voice of reason a lot of times.
100%. I think it helps to have someone that's different than you.
Oh, yeah.
Because can you imagine if she was the same, how you would build off each other? It would be like a juggernaut, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Heaven forbid that.
So, tell me a little bit about how you said you learned to manage people. What is your take on that? You know, I heard, some people may not know, but Simon Sinek, he's, I won't go into his story, but he said that he was in a group of, CEOs, and he was, consulting a group of CEOs.
Yeah.
And, you know, he asked the CEO, and he said, if you ask any CEO what their number one priority is, they'll say the customer. And he said, the CEO hasn't seen a customer in 20 years, you know. In management, your number one priorities are your employees.
Yeah.
So what is your take on managing people?
Well, I think the number one thing is to realize that different people need to be managed different ways.
Absolutely.
If you, and I still, struggle. I think everybody's going to struggle with, we have a natural tendency to like a certain type of people,
mm-hmm.
you know, and just because someone's not like you doesn't mean that they're not a good people.
Right. Or ineffective as an employee.
Right. And, but to understand that you have to allow people to make mistakes sometimes,
mm-hmm.
you know, and I have a lot of, I don't want to say perfectionist, but I want things done a certain way all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody's not doing it that way, my natural instinct is to just jump in and do it. But in order to allow people to grow, which I feel like a leader doesn't put himself in front of everybody. He lifts everybody up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he finds things that those people are good at and lets them be good at it and helps them grow in that. And so I think I went from, you know, my mentality was, I'm going to be the best. And I'm going to show you that I'm the best.
At everything.
Yeah. And to realizing that I can't do everything.
Right.
You know, and once you realize that you can't do everything, you have to be able to delegate different duties. And when you delegate different duties, you might communicate with them to what you're expecting from them. But you also have to be able to listen to their ideas and allow them, okay, that's not how I would do it, but if you think that'll work, I'm going to let you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't work, then you communicate with them. Okay, what did you learn in that?
Right.
So just, I think I've become a better delegator than what I am naturally. And part of that is, I think that's how you, motivate people. Nobody wants a job when somebody else is taking all the credit for it.
Right.
You know, if you're going to ask somebody to do
only
something,
when it works, they take credit.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, that's a very good point. If somebody is under you and you're managing someone as a leader, you should take all the fault for everything that happens.
And none of the credit. 100%.
Yeah. And I think everybody wants credit, you know, and so when something goes right, you gotta praise them for it.
Right.
And when something goes wrong, you gotta say, that's on me. We're going to do better and we'll fix it. And when people see you taking the falls for them, they will work for you.
Right. They see you take the sword,
run
it through you for their fault. No. You know, I met a business owner. He's from Mansfield, but he has a news organization that spans from Scott County, Sebastian County, and some of Logan County. I had him on, Jason Baggett, and one of the things that I noticed about him is he never takes credit for anything. The first he gave credit to God, and then he gave it to the people that work for him, and the people that do the most for him get the most credit.
Yeah,
and
that's the way it has to be. Yeah.
So, in your opinion, what does the economic future of the country look like?
Oof.
We're hearing a lot of doom and gloom come out of the Wall Street and
so
DC.
I am being recorded.
Yeah.
And
this is not financial advice, just your opinion.
Yeah. I believe in American people.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that America is the greatest country that's ever been. And I believe that the makeup of our country, our Constitution as a whole, gives people the power to control our economic future. So with that being said, what concerns me today is the lack of will in taking responsibility for yourself. I see. I love to help people. I mean, I will drop everything and do anything to try to help someone anytime that I can.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't believe in enabling people to be failures.
Right.
Sometimes we just give without giving responsibility. So the old phrase, I can give somebody a fish, or I can teach someone how to fish.
Right.
I think there's a whole lot of giving of fishes and not very much learning how to fish.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a huge concern to me whenever you look at the overall economy. The amount of debt that our country has is enormous, and my opinion, we've robbed our children.
Mm-hmm. And when you say it's enormous, it's double what our GDP is right now. Is that correct?
I haven't looked at that recently. Those numbers just make me sick whenever I look at them.
Yeah, during the Great Depression, I think it was our debt was like 30% of GDP, which is gross domestic product, and I think right now we're like at 200% of GDP.
Yeah, it's it makes me. I mean, we don't even realize we've stolen from tomorrow to have what we have today. That's what debt is.
Right. But that's a societal issue that we have currently. Everybody.
And there's no willingness to correct it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're starting to see the world recognize that we're not who we used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So with that looking at those factors, unless something changes, I don't think our kids are going to have the same America that we've had the pleasure of experiencing, and that's a concern to me.
Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on the universal basic income?
I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Where's it coming from? I mean, you can't just give money that's not earned. Right. Somebody's got to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise you're just creating more debt, and at some point debt has to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's either going to be paid in the form of inflation, which is going to mean that it's going to take a lot of dollars,
which we're seeing now because of the pandemic.
Yeah, I could say a lot on that subject, but I have to go back to, I have faith in the American people.
Mm-hmm.
I realize that there's a lot of corruption around us, there's always been corruption.
Right.
There's always going to be corruption. We're never going to have no corruption. I'm corrupt at times. I mean, I have that. So, I mean, it's a battle that each individual has to fight. But I believe in the American people, and I believe that we've been blessed by God to have the freedoms that we have here. And I choose to believe that if we can look to God first, then He will continue to bless us. If we don't, then I believe that He would remove His hand of watch care over us, and there might be some punishment.
Totally agree. And I want to kind of touch on what you said. You're not saying that you're corrupt in that you take underhanded deals and all that. You're saying that in the sense of we're all corruptible with no man. Yeah. We all fall short of the glory of God. We're all sinners. Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that. I didn't want people to think that you were saying, bring it to me. I'm correct.
I mean, when you make decisions, everybody makes a decision based upon what's in my best interest. Right. I mean, there's no getting around that. I mean, what I think is in my best interest is at the top of mind whenever, and we forget about the whole of people.
That's sometimes why communism will never work.
Right.
Because our human nature is self-preservation, and you cannot remove that.
Yeah. But we have to realize that what's in our best interest is for everybody to succeed.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes that's difficult.
Yeah.
So that's what I meant by we're all corrupt, is that we have to fight what we want for ourselves and be willing to give up some of ourselves for others in order for America to succeed. Yeah.
So, do you think? I love what you said. It was great. It kind of answered the questions. The more along the lines, do you think people should kind of batten down the hatches? They should start getting their financial house in order and start preparing for something on the horizon? Or do you think that, don't worry about it. This debt ceiling will be just like any other, things are just going to keep on keeping on?
Well, I don't lose sleep at night over what's happening tomorrow. But and this is what I've told a lot of my friends, is if the pandemic didn't teach us anything, it should have taught us how vulnerable our supply system is. Whenever toilet paper is all of a sudden not available, what would make us think that something that our food chain couldn't be just as easily? You wake up one morning and all of a sudden there's no food in the grocery stores,
and then you see how people behave in those scarcities.
Yeah, our food supply is not from home anymore, and I guess what really kind of brought some things to my light was realizing how far my food is. How close am I to not being able to feed my family? And I'm thankful. At my house, we generally keep a pretty good supply of food. My wife's got a little bit of food hoarder in her,
Right.
I'm thankful for that. But even with that, I mean, how long does it take you to grow your own food? I mean, how long, if you can't go to the grocery store, where are you going to get it?
Right. It's about a year-long process.
Yeah. We are so used to just being able to go down to Walmart and getting whatever we want. And I hope that that's always, I don't think that that's not going to be the case, but at the same time, I don't want to be the one that, if it does happen, that, I'm not going to have any food. I like to eat.
Same here. You can tell.
But I don't want anybody to lose any sleep at night. I don't think that's, on the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everybody should be a little self-sufficient. They need to be self-sufficient. You need
Absolutely.
to be thinking about how could I be self-sufficient? And, that's what built America. People were self-sufficient. And that was the American dream, that I could go to America and I can do whatever I want and build whatever I want by myself. And I think we've lost a little bit of that.
Yeah. You're seeing lately you've seen lots of farmers markets popping up in every town. Ours restarted, what is it, the second or third?
I don't remember which.
Saturday.
It's 2 Saturdays a month.
Yeah. You can check the chamber.
It was last Saturday, so it's 1st and 3rd, I believe. Okay.
So we're having you're seeing a lot of farmers markets, and I think if people would use those, I think that's an avenue where it's an end around the supply chain issue, because that's essentially when you go to a farmer's market, you're investing in your future, because if you put money in the pocket of that person that's supplying those goods, they're going to continue to do that. And that will be there if, God forbid, some calamity happen. Let's say the dollar collapses. Well, they may not take dollars, but they may take beans, bullets, and butter, and you can get your food, in a barter system. But to have those people there is another resource.
Yeah.
To, like you said, kind of hedge against the financial future. So I think that it really makes me happy to see those popping up all over. There's a huge one in Fort Smith at Chaffee Crossing. It's like
I've heard about that one. I've not made it up there.
I haven't either. I've only seen pictures. It's almost like Burning Man of Fort Smith. With no negative connotations there, not Burning Man, I guess, festival.
Yeah.
Like big flea market type thing with produce and
those are neat. It gives people an opportunity to show their goods, and gives you an opportunity to buy local.
Right. What advice would you give to a young person? I know you have a daughter that's just graduating this year, so and this should come pretty easy to you now. This is your first child to graduate high school, right?
Yes.
What advice did you give her, or what advice would you give the 18-year-old self?
I would say the number one thing that I would tell young people in general is that what you do, the decisions that you make today, could affect your whole life. So make them carefully.
Mm-hmm.
And as a graduating individual, you have a lot of major life decisions coming at you right now. And take advice, listen to advice, make decisions with the understanding that they're not light decisions and that they could have a lifelong impact on you.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm talking about financial decisions, don't put yourself in a situation where you have to have all of your income to live. Right now is a time whenever you can make a choice to not spend every dime that you make.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, well, why is that so important? Because when you borrow money, you become enslaved to money.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize that you have to borrow money sometimes. It's a good thing to borrow money to buy a house. I'm not saying that those things aren't something that you do, but don't get yourself in a situation where you're stuck.
Right.
There's freedom in living below your means.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of pressure to put on you to have, and a lot of us have been very blessed to have a lot. But there's a lot of freedom in not having all the things and living a little bit below your means, and then you're able to do a lot of things.
Right.
So those are, I guess, the big things is realizing that your decisions that you make today aren't just going to affect today. They can affect you for the rest of your life, and you still have a lot of life in front of you.
Very sound advice. Very sound advice. I feel like sometimes the up and coming generation, they feel like failure is the end, and I simply tell my kids, don't be afraid to fail, because that's where we learn.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, obviously you don't want to set yourself up to you graduate from high school with an 18-year financial commitment. That's not something that you want to do. That's, like you said, you don't want to be enslaved to anything.
Yeah.
But to take risks and to fail is to learn.
Well, yeah. And failure is only quitting.
Right.
If doing something wrong isn't bad unless you don't learn from it.
Right.
So how many times did Thomas Edison fail before he created the light bulb? A lot of times. But he finally created the light bulb because he didn't give up.
Right.
And so take your failures and learn from them.
And I'll add to that, he perfected the light bulb, and it lasted for a long time. And once they started mass producing the light bulb, there was a committee of manufacturers that got together and said, we have to make these so they don't last as long, or we're going to be out of a job. And they did.
That's a shame, isn't it?
There's a light bulb in, I think it's Boston, that is in an old firehouse there that has been burning since before the turn of the century, like the early or late 1800s, early 1900s, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. A long time ago. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, if they don't make them where they burn out, then they don't have a business.
Right. That kind of shows you the capitalist market there, the supply and demand.
That's crazy.
So how would people, let's say I had a lot of money in a 401k or something like that, and I wanted, or let's say I just got an inheritance or an annuity or something, if somebody that would like to use your services, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can call me, schedule an appointment. My phone number's 675-1385. And my email, p.blankenship@lpl.com. You can email me, call me, and schedule an appointment. I'd love to sit down and work with you and build a retirement plan for you.
So and I'm sorry I didn't touch on this a little bit more, but what is it exactly that you do? I know you're in the financial sector, but what exactly?
Yeah, so I focus a lot on building plans, financial plans for people. And I believe that, then once you have a plan, then we find the right vehicle to accomplish the goals within the plan. So whether that be through CDs and money market accounts, or through mutual funds, or individual stocks and bonds, annuities sometimes fit the need. So we try to build the plan, and then we try to find the right vehicle to get us to the end goal for each individual. And so I always start with the plan, because without a plan, we're just throwing money at things.
Mm-hmm.
But the plan helps us to understand, okay, when do we need income? When am I going to spend this money? what's our goal? Is it retirement income? Is it to buy a house? Is it to buy a car? Is it college savings? Do I want to pass money on to my kids?
Mm-hmm. All
those things determine what the right investment is for you. And I enjoy building the plans, and then we find the right vehicle for them.
Right. And I might add that there's, you can go, we live in an age where information is everywhere. You can research and you can get with big corporations and they can give you all the products and plans and stuff that you have. But the difference is there's not going to be somebody that sitting across the table from you that's going over this plan with you.
Right. Yeah. So, a lot of people, the biggest, I would say probably the biggest thing that individuals plan for is retirement. Mm-hmm. When you talk about financially, but hopefully, you only do that one time,
right?
And so that's a big life decision. And so a lot of times it's helpful to have somebody that's went through that process before. How do I turn all of my life savings into income?
Mm-hmm.
How much income can I take and not run out of money? How should I set this up? What risk should I be taking at this point in my life? And so everybody hears a lot of different things, but everybody's different. Everybody's life is different. Everybody's wants are different. And so you got to figure out what you want and then figure out what it's going to cost you to do that. So
very good. Well, we're over an hour now, so I don't want to keep you too long. I know you got to go back to work, but
yeah,
Philip, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.